I was talking to Barack 2 nights ago about this opening speech, and I had just discovered this wonderful video by Jack Ma on Twitter. I showed him the video on the boat ride. He said, this is a must show. This is a must see for every entrepreneur. So please start your presentation with the video. So I obliged, and we're going to watch the first minute of Jack Ma's 1999 original pitch of Alibaba to his friends in his apartment. Historical piece. The video, please.
而今天，我想把大家请过来，跟大家共同探讨以后至少5年、10年我们要做的事情。那么阿里巴巴我们将做成怎么样？我想，从黄页的时候我就提过，黄页所要瞄准的对象不是国内战略，而是国际战略。我们所有的竞争对手不在于中国，而在于美国的硅谷。如果说第一，我们把阿里巴巴定位，就把它作为国际战略，我们不要把它定位是国内战略。第二个呢，我想就是我们要学会硅谷人的一种拼劲。如果说我们是早上8点钟下班，8点钟上班，5点钟下班，这个不是搞高科技啊，这个绝对不是我们阿里巴巴能成功。如果说我们有这种精神，反正我上班了，8点钟上班，5点钟下班了 ，OK， 赶紧去其他地方。人家美国人强就强他的硬件，强就强他的系统建设，这方面确实比你早。但是玩信息玩软的，中国人的脑袋绝不比人家差。我们在座的所有的人的脑袋绝不比任何人差。这就
Okay, that's good enough. Thank you. How many of you had seen this video? Do you agree that it's a must-watch for all entrepreneur wannabes, entrepreneurs? This is the story of a man who turned $60,000 of his friend's money to $230 billion over 15 years. And within the first minute, he gives these 3 incredibly important messages. Go global. This is not about China, it's about the world. Working for 8 to 5 is not good enough. If you want to work 8 to 5, go find something else to do. And our brains are just as good as theirs. Very important. I'd like to underscore this. Jack says Chinese brains are just as good as the American brains. I say Turkish brains, brains from Morocco, Greece, Germany, Azerbaijan are just as good as the American brains. You have what it takes, ladies and gentlemen. So let's get to work. Let's do it. How many of you flew Turkish Airlines on the way here? Not as many as I expected. What's going on? Do you not like our national airline? Just to emphasize the difference between old and new, I put together this nice comparison between Turkish Airlines and some other company. If you did fly Turkish Airlines, it's a company that's created in 1933, 23,000 employees, one of the largest employers in Turkey, market cap of $4.3 billion. Their assets are primarily their planes, and they ship people. One of the largest companies in Turkey, one of the most liked airlines in Europe. In fact, they've been #1 over the last few years. Our pride and joy, Turkish Airlines. In comparison, a more recent company, WhatsApp, founded in 1999. I'm pretty sure more of you use WhatsApp than flew Turkish Airlines. 55 employees by the time they were sold. Sold for $19 billion. Their assets are servers, and they ship messages. They send the messages. So it's kind of a striking comparison of new and old, and nations have to make a decision on which side of this divide they wish to be. So with that introduction, I also have to painfully say that I found 2 more companies, Turkish companies with letters T. If you are using a cell phone, you might be using services of Turkcell. And if you have traveled in a taxi cab, you might have used gasoline refined by Tüpraş. These 3 big Turkish companies, Turkish Airlines, Turkcell, and Tüpraş, together have a market cap that's only about 75% of WhatsApp, okay? So what am I saying? Am I just saying that Turkish companies don't know what they're doing? No, what I'm saying is that it's possible to create far more wealth with far fewer people if you are playing in the new economy. it's difficult to compete in the new economy with the tools of the old economy. So this brings me to my opening slide, to be an entrepreneur in Turkey. Now, if you look at the facts, especially the ones that I picked from the Invest in Turkey site, this is actually a wonderful country for investment and for business. Central location between East and West, 1.5 billion people within several hundred kilometer radius, and economically well-off people. Large economy, growing economy, young and large population. So a consumer market as well as a labor market, stable political climate. Whether or not you like the current government, it is a stable political climate. A large university system, close to 200 universities, producing a lot of engineers. Liberal investment climate, well-developed infrastructure, and low taxes and low exemptions. This is basically the sales pitch of the government. And when you look at this from an entrepreneurial perspective, I could add to this a very high penetration of internet, smartphones, and credit cards. Kind of awkward, but Turkey is number 2 in Europe in credit card penetration, in the top 5 in the smartphone penetration. And to complement this penetration of internet, smartphones, and credit cards, there is a very well-developed door-to-door delivery system in Turkey through companies like Yurtiçi Cargo, for example. So you can have your goods delivered within 24 hours door-to-door. Add to that the large number of expats with entrepreneurial experience returning from the US, providing the necessary know-how. Add to that the government support for startups, angels, and universities, and the large number of technoparks, a concept that's unknown in most of the rest of the world, sort of tax-free zones attached to universities. You would think that this country would be a hotbed for entrepreneurs, not just for business, but also for entrepreneurs. You would think this country would lead the way, at least in the region. Is that the case, I ask, as an academic? And unfortunately, I don't think that is the case. Now, there is a true hotbed of entrepreneurship in the world, not debatable. And I wanted to compare Turkey to this startup nation. How does Turkey compare to a genuine startup nation? Turkey's population is 75 million. Israel's population is about 8 million, 1/10. Number of NASDAQ companies that started up in Israel is 70. Number of NASDAQ companies coming out of Turkey is still a 0. It's actually one of the goals of my life to see a Turkish company listed in NASDAQ. The largest exit to date, as far as I know, from hearsay, is Gitti Gidiyor to eBay, about $220 million. The largest exit in Israel to date is NDS, $5 billion, bought by Cisco, became Cisco Videoscapes. It's debatable whether it was worth $5 billion or not, but they did score $5 billion. And billion-dollar exits are not that uncommon in Israel. Startup financing, 80 million for 60 companies, and I must say half of that 80 million is actually financed by one person, Aslanova Capital. So half of all Turkish startup financing is one person. In contrast, in Israel, it's 2.3 billion for 600 companies. Now, as a result, I would like to say the GDP per capita in Turkey is only 10.5 thousand, Israel 37,000. It would require an economist to verify this hypothesis, but I am hypothesizing that if you take out the entrepreneurial ecosystem from Israel, you are left with a GDP that's comparable to Turkey. So the difference between Israel and Turkey in terms of wealth and richness and quality of life is the entrepreneurial sector, okay? Now, why is this happening? How is this happening? Well, here's a picture that shows you how it's happening. This is actually another Israeli startup. It's called Mapped in Israel, and it shows you all the players of the ecosystem on the map. And if you look at this, you realize immediately this is a true entrepreneurial nation. Over 1,000 entrepreneurs, over 40 accelerators, It's 36 there, but there's 41 now. When I think about accelerators in Turkey, I think the official number is maybe, well, if you include incubators, the official number is maybe 22, but functioning, producing companies, maybe 4 or 5. If you look at the number of investors, co-working spaces, R&D spaces, this is a startup nation. I thought about putting up a map of Turkey, comparable map. Would have been really easy. All I would have to do would be to take the map of Turkey and put it up there, okay? I wouldn't have to put much on it because there is not much on it. Now, so there is an example of a nation that has decided to grow economically through entrepreneurship. And they've actually also written a book about it. And the book has been translated into Turkish. We have it in our hands. We know how to do it, okay? We just need to follow the instructions. It's a bit more complicated than that, I know, but it's possible. Now, why is entrepreneurship weak in Turkey, given all these good things I said about the Turkish prospects in the beginning? Well, I've actually written an article on this in the September issue of Harvard Business Review, but just to summarize it for you, the Turkish cultural values, which are shared by most of the countries in the Middle East, are not very conducive to entrepreneurship. High power distance, high risk aversion, fatalistic views, they're not terribly pro-entrepreneurial cultural values. Our history, that we are quite proud of, is not a history of business successes. It's a history of an empire that is committed to conquest. So it's a sort of a military history, not a business history. Our economy is state-controlled, very centralized, centrally planned, and our education system, such as it is intended to groom state employees and soldiers, much like the rest of the Middle East. And in the ecosystem, all of the players are rather weak, including, first and foremost, the universities are not doing their jobs. I've said all this in this recent article published in Harvard Business Review. I said a little bit more, but due to space constraints, they had to take out some of that material, which I would like to bring to your attention here. There's other reasons why entrepreneurship in Turkey is not doing as well as it possibly could. So, connection between government and entrepreneurship. First, I would like to say that the current government is business-friendly. It's the most business-friendly government that I have experienced in my lifetime. Secondly, this government has done more for entrepreneurship than any other government I know. In the last 5 years, they established startup financing for new companies to the tune of $50,000, can go up to $500,000, depending on how successful you are. They created the most liberal angel support system that I know of. You finance 3 companies, the government finances the 4th, and they are giving universities cash to set up technology transfer offices to the tune of $2.5 million over 5 years. Those are initiatives that actually help entrepreneurship. However, unfortunately, they also took some initiatives which were not intended to harm entrepreneurship, but resulted in harming entrepreneurship. For example, the internet restrictions. Over 50,000 sites are not admissible in Turkey, including some e-commerce sites, unfortunately. For example, currently the construction sector is over-promoted in Turkey, which is, I do appreciate the extended supply chain of the construction sector and how quickly it can help the economy grow, but also I don't think it's a sustainable way of economic growth. I would like to see more innovation-based delivery of production and services for the Turkish economy to continue to grow. The overemphasis on construction, of course, means resources are channeled to construction, money goes to construction. If you want to make money in Turkey now, you find someone who knows someone and you get into construction, you build these towers and you sell these towers. Why should you waste your time and energy for entrepreneurship, startups for innovation? And the third one, unfortunately, the modifications in the education system are not supporting entrepreneurship these days. This is a country, it's quite interesting. Our Prime Minister and our Minister of Education are both university professors. And I wish that we would be talking more about innovation and entrepreneurship at the beginning of this school year than about other issues that really don't matter to the growth of the Turkish economy and the welfare of the nation state. Unfortunately, some of these decisions, as I emphasized, did end up harming entrepreneurship. That's how much I can say on the stage without risking myself or my employer any further. So this is where I will end. But I think this slide sort of crept in at the last moment. I read a lot as an academic, and the most recent book I read is called The Great Degeneration, How Institutions Decay and Economies Die, by Niall Ferguson, a Harvard history professor, political economy professor. He says Western civilization is based on 4 pillars. Democracy, of course, the participative kind, where you don't just vote once for 4 years and then you go away, you look back. Capitalism, and of course, the regulated kind, not the wild capitalism. Rule of law, independent dispute resolution systems, and civil society, NGOs, social networks. It's up to you to judge where Turkey stands on these 4 pillars. But I have experience, in my not so humble personal opinion, we're not doing terribly well on those 4 pillars. And that especially hurts entrepreneurs because individual freedoms and rule of law are terribly important for entrepreneurs. You can't groom entrepreneurs in a birdcage. Entrepreneurs have to have a case with the status quo. They are fighters. They want to change the world. They don't do terribly well in countries where they are restricted in many different ways. So I sort of started on a high note, and then I said, well, we're not doing that well. Can't finish on this low note. I still think you should try your darndest to be an entrepreneur, and I'll give you 5 reasons why you should. Istanbul is destined. Burak is doing this startup Istanbul, great vision, startup capital of the region. I think it's happening. I think it's going to happen. A number of reasons. The current government, administration decisions, whatever, that's sort of temporary, okay? What is going to remain with us is this wonderful city on 2 continents, incredibly energetic, incredibly youthful, and looking towards the future, looking around itself to become an economic hub in the region. That's the reason 0. Reason 1 is it's in your DNA. To be an entrepreneur is in your DNA. 2 quotes. Muhammad Yunus says, all human beings are entrepreneurs. When we were in the caves, we had to find our own food. We were all self-employed. Then came the Industrial Revolution and turned us into laborers. We forgot that we are entrepreneurs. It's about time we rediscovered that we are entrepreneurs. And Reid Hoffman and Ben Kasnocha say, the will to create is encoded in the DNA. And the creation is the essence of entrepreneurship. So you can't help it. It's in your genes. Reason 2, well, you also want to change the world. The best reason to start an organization, says Guy Kawasaki, is to make meaning, to create a product or service that makes the world a better place. Unfortunately, a lot of people think entrepreneurship is about money. I keep telling them, well, money is sort of something that happens on the side. It's about changing the world. It's about making meaning. Doing something that no one has done before, or improving something that someone else has done before. The Olympic motto of Citius, Altius, and Fortius applies to entrepreneurs just as well. And if you can't do something that no one else has done before, or improve on something that someone else has done before, then you can copy. It's okay to copy as an entrepreneur. Adopt a good solution to a new environment. The 4th reason is autonomy matters. When you think about why you live, what your goals are, what you wish to accomplish in life, what your values are, autonomy actually comes up pretty high in the list of values. We are born to be players, not pawns. We are born to be autonomous, not automatons. Daniel Pink said it as well, as better than anyone else I've seen, so I took his quote. And he does talk about the 4 T's of autonomy: task, time, technique, and team. What are you going to do? When are you going to do it? How are you going to do it? With whom are you going to do it? You're all autonomous individuals. You need to be in a work environment where you can live your autonomy. And that you get through entrepreneurship. What do I mean by that? Well, you know, many of you are university students, are fresh graduates, so you graduate from the university, you get a job, it's technically 9 to 5, but sometimes you have to work till 6 or 7. You have to work 5 days a week, but sometimes it's 6 days. You have a fixed income, you have small raises. You have 20 vacation days if you're lucky. Then you race for promotions with your colleagues. Your managers decide, you implement. Your managers manage your career, they move you, they hire you, they fire you, they promote you. And then you die. Before you die, you get a gold watch, okay? After you work for 40 years, you get a gold watch. And your tombstone reads, he was obedient, disciplined, diligent, hard worker. I think that's a great option for robots. Great option for avatars. It's just not meant for humans. It's not meant for us. So this is why I'm suggesting you should be entrepreneurs. If you're an entrepreneur, you start at 7 and you work till 2 a.m. Okay, 5 hours of sleep is good enough. I do remember the presentation by Simit Dünyası founder. He said for 2 years he slept for 4 hours a day. 2 years during the startup phase of the company. Quite common. You work for 7 days. There is no income. Okay? Maybe there will be financial consequences later on, but there is no income. There's no vacation. So it looks horrific, but we're going back to the caves, remember? You end up working with a team, you co-create with the team. In Turkish, we call this birlikte başarmak. That you don't really experience in a corporate environment. You decide, and then you implement as a team. You control our own fate, and the tombstone would read, she made the world a better place. That is the choice for human beings. This is why I think you should seriously consider entrepreneurship if you haven't caught the bug yet. Nice cartoon. A question I frequently get, but can I be an entrepreneur, Professor? I'm not born as an entrepreneur. It's very clear in my mind that entrepreneurship can be taught and it can be learned. Yes, there are some personality attributes that might preclude you from being an entrepreneur. There are very few individuals in the society, I would say less than a quarter, who are simply not cut out to be entrepreneurs, who cannot be entrepreneurs. Who cannot be an entrepreneur? And if you're not in this set, you can be one. Very low risk tolerance, if you have almost no tolerance for risk. Very low perseverance, if you need success immediately, if you can't put up with temporary failures. You dislike teamwork, you want to just do something on your own. It's okay for you to be just a cog in somebody else's machine because you have some other hopes in life, some hobbies. You don't care about ethics, and you want to get rich quick. If this is the kind of person you are, then I don't think you can be a successful entrepreneur. But then again, if this is the kind of person you are, I'm not sure you'll be terribly successful in the corporate world either, especially if you want to get rich quick and if you pay no attention to ethics. Ethics is king in entrepreneurship. It's something that we don't talk much about in Turkey. So if you are a student graduating from the university, or if you've just graduated, what are some of the suggestions I can give to you? I would say at least a third of you are students. Number one, don't expect much from your university unless you are in one of the handful universities in Turkey. Number two, do an internship and a summer job. Number three, read at least 5 books. And you might have noticed I already quoted 4 books for you here. Do follow Burak. Do follow Autonomy. The only marketplace, I would say, in Turkey, not the biggest, but the only marketplace for entrepreneurs in Turkey. Get to know the players in the ecosystem as quickly as you can. Spend a day in an incubator or an accelerator, an entire day, not just sitting around, asking people questions, shadowing them. Select 5 startups and follow them. I have my 5 that I follow. Every day, I look what happened. Did they get new funding? Are they having a new campaign? Did they generate their customer base? Did they increase their customer base? Offer free help to a startup. If you are a programmer, you'll be in high demand, especially if you're an applications developer. If you have some experience in user interface, they will love to get free help from you. And then here is my surprising suggestion. Work for a company for 5 years. Get to know the business, generate the ideas, make the mistakes on somebody else's money. And then try entrepreneurship from within the company. Try to be an entrepreneur from within the company if you can. Chances are you will not succeed in Turkey because entrepreneurship is not well understood in Turkey, but give it a try. And if you have no entrepreneurial plans, I would question why you are here. In case you have no entrepreneurial plans, again, don't expect much from your university. Again, do your internship and your summer job. After you graduate, find the organization that fits you best. And I congratulate you for your corporate slavery. And when you had enough, you go to the previous slide. I think we need to explain to the world that these Deloittes, these McKinseys, these P&Gs are actually the enemies of entrepreneurship. They take our best and brightest brains. The construction sector is the enemy of entrepreneurship. They take the best and the brightest brains. We have to keep the best and the brightest so we can continue to innovate. But if you go to the previous slide, please remember to say, he told us so, okay? All right, so this is my contact information. If you want to write to me, I will read it. And occasionally I write articles in my blog on entrepreneurship. Welcome to follow them as well. Welcome to follow me on Twitter. Thank you very much. You've been a wonderful audience.